could sit up straight for an hour here.
Ryan, are you determined not to make news like what happened last year?
Yeah, well, all I know is an hour's a long time, so get comfortable. It'll fly by. Yeah, any questions you guys have, just start firing away.
What? Coach Day, welcome to Buckeye Nation. What is your philosophy and your core values, for the program this year?
Yeah, so much of this offseason and the conversation with Gene Smith and Urban was just that so much of my philosophy and core values fell in line with what was already there. And so our core values are the same, and our culture is the same. And some things that we've looked at moving forward is in the message that we've had to our team is what we call tough love, which is we have to be tough. We have to be tough physically, mentally, emotionally. We have to be tough in the field, but also loving our coaches, loving our players, loving our teammates, and making sure that there's that relationship, because we want to motivate through love and making sure that it's a positive environment where guys love coming to work every day and bringing energy. And if they put so much into it that there's no way they're gonna in the fourth quarter give up, because they put so much into it. And so the infrastructure that's been in place is going to stay the same. The plan to win is the same. And so we're just going to keep all that stuff going, because the way I look at it is, if somebody runs the power play on offense, would you not run the power play because the last guy ran it? No, it works. It's good. So all those things are in place, and we're just going to continue to enhance it.
Ryan, what have you seen this summer from Justin in terms of him taking command of the offense? I don't know what your reports you're getting back about how his workouts with the receivers and the offense have gone.
Yeah, they've been going well. All reports are going, they're coming back really strong. That taking a lot of the responsibility of going out there and throwing with those guys on their own. We're not able to watch any of it or have any say in it, but it's been going positive. Listen, talking to the receivers and some of the other guys, they say it's been going really, really well. But we'll find out in August once we get down the field and start with practice.
What do you think Jonah Jackson, I didn't mention him,
Yep. Experience, toughness. He's played a lot of football, and I think the guys like him. So he's going to have to learn the offense quickly. The good news for him is that there was a year there at Rutgers where they were actually using a lot of our same terminology. So there's some carryover there for him. So I assume he's going to pick it up pretty quick. He's smart, he's sharp, he's tough, and he's played a lot of football.
Did it appeal to you that he was in the program with a former Ohio State assistant?
Yes. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
Ryan, how would you change your transfer portal if you could?
I mentioned this earlier. I think for me to answer that now is hard because it's so complex of an issue. I think it's easy to just say one way, but there's ripple effects that go on with it. I'm concerned with it, but I also see both sides of the argument. I can see where kids want to be able to go from different schools and have that freedom, but also if it gets crazy, it turns into free agency, and we almost lose what college football is all about. So I really want to get a year under my belt of being a head coach, and then after the season, really look forward to sitting down with some of the other head coaches, administrators, ADs, and having those conversations and trying to figure out what is the best solution moving forward. But I know, and I'm smart enough to know that I don't have all the answers right now, and so I think the focus right now is on the season, and then once the season gets over, really spend some time thinking and talking all that through.
Right. You said you all along that you wanted to take that quarterback competition into training camp. If you look at the rest of the roster, how many starting positions do you think have realistically been spoken for, and how many are open going into August?
Not many. I think the tight end group is a group that's fighting to get with two tight ends in the game. I think that's a competition battle. Is our second H receiver and our second Y, if that makes sense. I think when you look at KJ Hill, he's an incumbent. He's a tremendous player. He's going to be a starter for us. Thayer Mumford will be a starter for us. J.K. Dobbins will be a starter for us. Ben and Austin are going to play a lot for us, and most likely start for us. And then up front, that's a battle right there, because we have a bunch of guys in there that can play. And finding that out in August is going to be fun to watch, because Wyatt played good down the stretch, but he still has to win that job. He hasn't won it. Thayer has, and then there's a bunch of guys vying for the right tackle and center, left guard position.
Ryan Thayer's this spring. What's the update with him? I know that you guys anticipated he'd be back, but how was his summer, and where is he at right now physically?
Doing great. Back practicing, working out 100% right now, and he's ready to roll.
Go back to the quarterbacks there, Ryan. I get this question all the time. It's you wouldn't have gone out to get Justin Fields, somebody with his recruiting pedigree, without assuming that he was probably going to be the starter. But so why not say it? What's the value for you guys and to take that into go out in August and have that uncertainty?
In terms of being a starter?
Yeah, just like,
Well, because one of our core philosophies is that you don't just get given the starting position, you have to earn everything you get around here. And he hasn't done that. And I think that the hard thing for everybody to realize is that he's coming off the heels of Dwayne Haskins. And so I think a lot of people think, well, Dwayne, went from 0 to 60 so fast and he just kind of jumped into the Heisman Trophy race and that all happened. Well, that was a very different scenario than Justin Fields. And so Justin hasn't won the job yet. I mean, that's the first step in all this. And I know everybody wants to get way ahead of themselves and start talking about Heisman, but how about winning the starting quarterback job first? Because you can't win the job when you're still learning the offense. And so, he learned the offense in the spring. He's got to, he's got to step ahead of Gunnar because Gunnar just got here. He didn't even go through the spring. And so that room is really, really green. And Chris Chuganoff's going to be in there. He's going to be competing and fighting, for playing time there. So, and Mike Yursich, is new to our staff as well. So that whole room is literally the first step of the progression. And, we've done a good job in the spring of picking that up. And then August is going to be big for us. August is going to be one of those times where we've got to move. We're going to have to take big steps forward. And then the first time we play in that first game, the quarterback's going to be throwing the first pass. And he's got to throw his first touchdown pass. And, all the things are for the first time. And I know it was the same way with Dwayne last year, but he had been in the program. That was his third year, and he also had game experience. So I think that was a unique situation as well.
When you have a
defense player and then college coach and an NFL coach, you've been in a lot of quarterback rooms. Can you put this quarterback room in context? You mentioned up there how unique it is that there's just no carryover experience.
Yeah, I think it's similar maybe a little bit to some of the NFL rooms in that nobody was there last year, but they're young and virtually no experience in the room. So it's one of the more unique rooms I've ever been around. And so what that means is there's going to be growth along the way, and especially in those first 6 games, there's going to be growth. There's going to be mistakes, and we're going to have to work through those things. And understanding that, and understanding that the expectations have to be managed a little bit in that room, and make sure we're transparent with the rest of the team that position's going to need help. We have to do a good job protecting and running the ball and playing good defense and playing good special teams. That's all part of it as we start to build that identity.
When you have a
how tough is it when you're putting a staff together, and you're putting your staff together, but you can't keep every coach? How tough is that when you have to tell coaches that you can't really use it?
Probably the toughest thing that I had to go through since taking over. Yeah, that's not easy. Very, very difficult. And it's something that didn't come too lightly. Had a hard time with it. But it was one of those things you have to make a decision in your role, and that's when you think that it's the right thing to do, you got to make the decision and then move on from there. But not easy.
Because of a lot of the things you just named, no matter who you throw out there, you're gonna have a first-year quarterback out there. Is there a method to when you want to name a starting quarterback on a year-by-year basis, or does it matter depending on the scenario?
I mean, you'd like to get it done within the first couple weeks of camp for sure. Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think you know who that is. If it goes into the 3rd week of preseason camp, then then either they're both competing at a high level or nobody stepped up yet. So we'd like to have it within the 2nd week of camp, but if not, then we'll just keep it going. You just don't know. You don't know what it's going to look like. Someone could step up a curve tomorrow, and you just don't know. So.
Do you adjust play call those first 6 games based on because where they are, or kind of ease your way into it, or do they have to know it?
Well, I think that is college football right there. Is if you just throw a playbook or you just throw a game plan out and just start calling plays, you're going to be disappointed. You have to figure out. Last year, we had a certain group of guys. The year before, we had a certain set of guys, and we had to make sure you play to those strengths. And that's the key. And inexperience at quarterback is going to be one of them moving forward.
Ryan, at middle linebacker, do you feel like you guys just need to pick one guy and go with him? Or might you guys rotate? You mentioned middle linebacker earlier with Tuff and Taraja and Barron. Might you guys rotate, not necessarily series by series, but could you rotate a little bit?
Yeah, I think when you look at what we did on offense last year, we rotated those guys a bunch. And they're all playing, not all, but a bunch of them are playing in the NFL now. And I think you can do that at all positions. I think it keeps you fresh. It helps you later on in the season, helps you later on in the game. But they have to earn the spot. We're not just going to do it to do it. And if someone's, that much further ahead than the other guy, then they'll play more. But if they earn playing time, then they're going to play, and on special teams and on defense.
Specifically, Taraja, where's he at right now? What does he need to do better in your eyes to win that job or be in the mix for that job?
I think, well, again, we'll know more coming out of preseason camp, but he's taken some strides. He did a great job on the scout team last year, had a good spring. I think he's still learning the defense and understanding, the diagnosing the plays, and understanding, where to fit in his run stuff and where to go in the pass game. But he goes really hard. He's a leader out there, and he's tough.
When you have a quarterback like Justin who's come in and is surrounded by the hype he's been, do you view it as an important part of your job to help him manage those expectations, to make sure that the hype around him doesn't get too big before the season starts?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think that's part the position coach, as part of the coordinator, and part of the head coach is understanding that, because I think that's really important for the quarterback to understand week in and week out what his role is, week in and week out how the game's going to be different, week in and week out how social media is handling everything, good, bad, or indifferent. One of the things we had to deal with last year with Dwayne was, it went from 0 to 60 so fast, and it was all positive. And how do you now, keep your expectations under control based on where he was at in his development at that point, or after the Iowa game 2 years ago, dealing with JT and social media there. Those are two, extreme situations. But I think counseling a quarterback, especially at that age in college, is critical week to week.
Ryan, talking about this competition for jobs and that kind of thing. On defense, you guys have a lot of starters back, a lot of experienced guys back, but you have a lot of young players who might be ready to play.
Yep.
Is that a difficult decision if you have starters on defense where maybe you guys would come to a decision, well, we're better if this other guy plays and a starter is no longer a starter? How difficult is that as a new head coach?
I think it goes back to, the position coach and the conversations that are being had in that room. I think that if they understand that it is an open competition and the best players are going to play, then I don't think it's a hard conversation. I think if there's conversations that are had where, the understanding is you're the starter, and then all of a sudden, a week before the game, you say, hey, you're not starting, and this guy is, now you got a problem on your hands. And so I think constant communication about where they are in the depth chart is really important, especially in August. Not as much in the spring or bowl practice, because you're just out there learning your job. But as the depth chart starts to break out, you get closer there. I think communication is really, really important, because most guys they'll understand it if they're told, all along. It's when you start to surprise guys when they get upset.
Right. What are the indicators that you will be better on defense than a year ago? And what have you seen through spring and in the summer that tells you y'all will be better?
Well, I think we have good players. I think we have a good staff. I think we have a good scheme. And so when I go to bed at night, I think to myself, well, we should be pretty good. And I said it to the guys on the staff. I said, do you want a better D-line? Do you want a better secondary? Do you want better linebackers? I don't know if there's better players out there in the country. Maybe there are. I'd like to see them. And we have a really good staff and a really good scheme. So I go to bed thinking to myself, boy, we have to be pretty good on defense. And I think we will be. And is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect. But we're going to have to solve the problems as they come, because they're going to come. And how quickly we can solve those problems, I think, will indicate, what kind of defense we're going to be.
Ryan, the last 3 years, your games with Penn State have been very competitive. You've been on the sidelines for 2 of them. Why do you think you guys match up so well, and why do those games always seem to come down to the final moments?
First off, they have a great program. They're coached really, really well. On defense, Brent Pride does an unbelievable job of keeping everything in front of them and not giving you anything free. When you look statistically year in and year out, they're tough. And then on offense, they're pretty creative in how they do things, and so I think when you have a well-coached team, then they recruit really, really well, and then you're in the Big Ten, you're in the thick of it. It's going to be hard to beat them, and those have been 2 of the most memorable games I've played in. Those have been wild games that went all the way to the 4th quarter, and so the year before I got there, I think we lost on the road there, and so those are just Big Ten battles against a really good, well-coached team that are hard, and that's just part of it.
Ryan, you know better than everybody, because you get asked about all the time, that you're replacing somebody that had a huge name. But I'm wondering, when you first took this job, did you have to sit down with Mark and make any major adjustments to the overall recruiting philosophy that you guys have as a program? Considering maybe Urban might be able to get into doors just because he was more of a legend, obviously at this point in his career that you are now. Did you have to adjust that, or did you guys keep recruiting the same exact plan that he already had, and is it working?
I think the plan's working, but it's different in that, to your point, I think, you're talking about one of the most legendary coaches in the history of the game. And the minute someone, met Urban or he went into a house, there was instant credibility there. I think our staff and me as the new head coach, we had to spend a little more time of understanding that this is our vision and selling our vision of what this is. And it's been successful that way. We spent a lot of time talking about how it's not just the coaches, it's everybody involved, the GAs, everybody in that building. When someone walks in the building, it's that environment. Because if we say we're going to be a family, we have to be a family. And that, if you send your son to Ohio State, he's going to be taken care of. He's going to be taken care of on the field in terms of developed at the highest level. He's going to be taken care of in the classroom and making sure he has all the support he needs, but then also off the field and all the things that we're providing right now. And that this program is going to be motivated through love, and that's part of being a family. Because what I say to our guys all the time, and I say to the recruits is, "What do you love the most in your life?" And they all say their family. What would you do for them? Anything. Well, why can't we have that same relationship with our players and our coaches? And that's really what we talk about with our guys. And I think the guys that we've had committed here have done a great job of communicating with each other and building that camaraderie early on. So it's been going well.
Ryan,
yeah, I think there's always changes. There's changes year in and year out. Can I tell you that it's completely different than in the past? No. There's a lot of similarities in the way we do things and group recruit and do different things like that. But anytime there's new people involved, it's going to be very, very different. And I got to give our staff credit. The guys are killing it out there. They're doing a great job and really busting their hump to make sure that they're outworking everybody out there. I'm proud of those guys, but still a long way to signing day, so we just got to keep going.
When you say the plan is working in regards to recruiting, is this the plan? On one hand, go after the best national recruits we can get, but also in the class have some spots for Ohio kids or maybe kids who maybe aren't rated as high but want to be here, and we're going to take a percentage of these guys and a percentage of these guys and almost have two paths to the class.
And I said that, the basis of our recruiting has to be in Ohio and then in that 3 to 4 hour radius. That has to be the foundation. But then Ohio State has a brand that can go from coast to coast. And so now let's go get some of the elite ones around the country. And that's the philosophy. But we have to have that foundation in Ohio, and I think we're doing it.
Why are you on the West Coast so much in this recruiting class?
I don't think it's not an emphasis. It wasn't like I said, hey guys, let's go recruit California or out that way. That wasn't the case. I think it's just the way that this cycle has worked. I don't have a lot of ties out there, or anything like that. I think it's just the way, things happen in cycles, and I'd be surprised if it was the same way next year. I think maybe we'll be into Texas and down in the Southeast maybe more next year, but I think it's just kind of the way it worked this year. Yeah.
Ryan, since you haven't, Justin hasn't played much, what do you absolutely know for sure about him as a college player?
What I know about him is first off, physically, he checks all the boxes: running, athleticism, size, power, throwing ability, arm strength, accuracy, intelligence. He has all those things, and so now it's just a matter of going into August and putting it on the field and seeing what kind of product we got. But in order to learn, you got to fail. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of failing a lot in practice, spending a few years as an understudy. Some of those failures are going to happen in a game. There's going to be a lot of deep breaths, but in the end, the good news is we got a chance for high seasons.
Ryan, the planning of this how much has that been on your radar as you take this job, and then what kind of control, if any?
I think it is something nationally that I've been aware of and talked to our people about, and it's something that I think projecting forward, there's been just a lot of conversation about how do we help the fan experience when we're there, and one of them is to score a lot of points.
You talked about being yourself and being comfortable. You've got all these microphones. You have to have an answer for everything. How is that going? How comfortable are you in this setting? And is it a process?
Yeah, I think you just try to be yourself the best you can and not try to be somebody else, not try to watch someone else's press conference and be them, just be yourself. And in the end, you just got to have enough confidence that that it's going to be good enough in the end. And again, when it comes down to it, I'm speaking on behalf of the whole staff. It's not just me up here; it's our team, it's our staff, it's the coaches, and knowing that we're doing things the right way, knowing that we're working really hard, we've got a great group of guys is what motivates you.
Ryan, as you get ready for camp, what are the 2 or 3 biggest questions you have about this team, whether it's personnel or chemistry or whatever it might be?
It's not 1 or 2 things. I mean, clearly the quarterback position is huge. How well we're going to play on defense is critical. Can we run the ball? Those type of things. But I think it's going to be something that isn't answered in the first couple of weeks of August. I think it's going to be something that we have to figure out in those first 6 games till we get to that first bye week. It's just going to be a journey, and I think that's what's unique about college football.
And how much of a quarterback has to be a leader, and it's hard to be a leader when you haven't been here that long, you haven't established relationships. How big a challenge is it going to be for presumably Justin, better or whoever?
Yep, no, that is a big challenge. When you don't have the luxury of being here for a long time and creating trust amongst the guys around you, then it is. That's a big challenge. And it's not easy to do in short order.
Ryan, you that new identity in the first 6 weeks. How intricately will J.K. Dobbins involved with that as your, the process of learning unfolds?
Yeah, J.K.'s got to run big for us. He's got to play big for us in those first 6 games. The offensive line's got to block, but we talked to J.K. several times about how he's going to turn 3-yard carries into 5-yard carries and 5-yard carries into 6 and 7-yard carries, and then if he does that, the big plays will come. And I think last year when he was kind of going in and out with Mike, I think sometimes maybe he was looking for the home run. I think he'd tell you that. So this year in those first 6 games, he's got to get his pads down. He's got to run. He's got to play veteran for us. He's got to play good. The offensive line's got to do the same thing to take a little pressure off of that position.
Ryan, you're talking about this first 6 games. Tell me if this is totally nuts. You want to win every game. You accept the high expectations at Ohio State, right? You never want to shy away from that. Right. But Urban only lost 9 games to 7 years, which is like crazy. So how either right? Crazy.
What's in there?
So either in your head, and do you want to verbalize this, maybe to the fan base, that of course we want high expectations, but if we lose a game, it's not the end of the world. And maybe there's not an answer that a coach can give to that.
Well, I think, I know exactly what you're saying. Trust me. I think when you start to think of it that way, you get overwhelmed in a hurry, and you start to focus on things that really don't matter. So, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're playing really, really hard, that we're playing with really good scheme, that we're taking care of the football, playing sound football, playing tough football, and if we do that, everything else will take care of itself. And I think staying focused on what matters right now is critical. But there is going to be adversity along the way. I don't know what it's going to be. When you just think back on the last few years, even at Ohio State, but any program, there's adversity that hits, and there's a journey that starts that you never thought would happen. And there are obstacles, there's challenges, there's things that come in the way. And so building the relationships and building some of the expectations on the front end help you deal with them so that it doesn't just come all caving in. Because I think that is a challenge, is that, the expectations are so high here that if you don't win them all, the minute you lose a game, you can't just come crumbling and fall apart. And to our credit, last year we lost that bad game, but we were able to fight ourselves back out of it. And it was ugly, but we kind of clawed back out of it and had an unbelievable season. And so, to your point, I think it's one of those things you have to think about and have a plan for. You can't just, drive with no brakes and think everything's going to go great, and the minute something goes bad, you fall apart. You can't do that. Because I'm in this thing for the long haul, and I know our staff is too.
Ryan, how do you view your role with the defense? When we would ask Urban questions about it, it's all ask Luke or ask Greg. He seemed to be more hands-off with that side of the football. Will you be involved in that in some capacity, or what do you want to do with that side?
Yeah, when putting the staff together, I wanted to make sure we had a staff that they could solve the problems themselves. And I know that as an offensive coach, some of the best environments I've been is when I can, as an offensive coordinator, solve the problems on my own. Because I think at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are doing things the way you want to do them. And so between Greg Madison, Larry Johnson, Jeff Hafley, and Al Washington, the guys in that room, Matt Barnes, there's so much experience in that room that I believe in them, that they're going to solve the issues that come up, because there's going to be issues that come up. And, there'll be times where I'll stick my head in there and say, hey, have you looked at this? And sometimes you can't see the trees in the forest. And hey, in August camp, hey, we're going to attack you in this formation because you're a little short over here, and that helps. Or hey, you're giving away the splits because this linebacker is doing this. Those are the things that help them with. Just kind of general ideas as opposed to specifics.
What is your approach to defense? We kind of have an idea what you like offensively. What is your philosophy from a defensive standpoint?
I think it's a combination. Well, first off, you got to stop the run. I mean, we know that. I mean, that goes without saying. But to say it's bend but don't break, or to say it's aggressive and challenge every throw, I think it's a combination of two things. Because as an offensive coach, I think about the guys that give us the hardest time, and it's the combination of those two things. If you know it's a bend but don't break, you can check the ball down, you can be smart, you can kind of work your way down the field and play that game. If it's an aggressive defense that's in your face every play, you kind of you put your man beaters together and you kind of roll. The teams that change that up, I think, are the best in terms of defending the pass and then having the ability to blitz when needed. But at the end of the day, you want your defense to not have to think too much, play fast, identify tendencies, identify keys, and play really with a lot of speed.
Like some of the stuff you've done for a guy like Rondale Moore, and how successful was that last year?
Say it again about him.
Rondale Moore, how do you game plan for a guy like that?
Yeah, we had to put in place a few things in the off season to help with that. He's a smaller guy, and he's a little bit of a matchup issue for us. And so, recruiting that way and having maybe a couple smaller guys who are a little bit better in short areas, we think that's a better matchup for us. And possibly getting into some nickel packages and other packages where there's some maybe shorter guys who are a little quicker and more explosive.
About the defense, there's going to be more zone, and the defensive line is going to play more north-south. How much input did you have into that schematic change?
That was part of the conversations in hiring the staff. Just making sure that everybody's on the same page with that. And that was part of, hey, listen, this is what we want to do. And then once you guys are here, you guys run it and you let me know what you think is best.
You mentioned housekeeping. Can you give an injury update, guys who missed a lot of spring? From the Hall and other guys like that.
Yeah, not really. I think one of the things that we're trying to do moving forward is really staying away from a lot of the injury stuff. And so I really don't have any injury updates.
Ryan, with Penn State, Michigan, and a possible Big Ten championship for your last 3 games of the regular season, does your youth concern you at all, especially going to Michigan on the road? And then, like I said, a possible Big Ten championship?
You're talking about the youth this year going into this season?
Yeah, does that concern you?
I think by the time you get to that point, you're really not young anymore. I think you have experience. Like Chris Olave is a great example. He was young, right? He was a freshman in that game. But then he went on to block a punt, score 2 touchdowns in a rivalry game, and then won in the Big Ten championship game. Because one second. So I think when you get to that game, right, by then youth really isn't a factor anymore. But I think that early in the season, it's a major factor. The good news is we don't have to play a ton of young guys. We have to play a lot of inexperienced guys, especially on offense. But we don't have to play a lot of young guys. When you look at our defense, I think 85% of the production is back. I think in that way we're going to be all right. But the veteran guys have to play veteran. The good guys have to play good. So. I'm sorry, just repeat real quick.
Yeah, I was wondering, speaking on that question, are there any guys on the team who have impressed the staff so far that can potentially have like a breakout season? Not in a way maybe like past season, but similar to ways like Olave and those guys.
Yeah. There are a lot of guys, and I think there are a lot of guys that think that they can have much better years than they did the year before. So I think that's exciting. Guys. The one guy that I think has had a tremendous offseason, really we're looking for big things from is Davon Hamilton. He's really changed his body, had a great offseason, so I think he's got a chance to really change the line of scrimmage for us up front.
Ryan, you mentioned before that you guys are going to use a lot of different personnel groupings on defense. What's that been like over the course of the offseason, just kind of seeing the defensive scheme evolve?
It's been exciting to see kind of how do we put our guys in the best position to be successful. And, some guys, well, maybe they're okay at one position, all of a sudden you move them to another spot and they look a little different. And I think that's come into play with a couple guys. And So, you know, if they can do something really, really well, let's put them on the field and let them do it.
What are the kind of things you have to do with guys in practices in the off season to kind of figure out what's maybe that one best role that fits them best?
Well, I just think if you're a good cover guy and you're a good matchup against a tight end and you can cover tight ends, and that's your job. If you're a good blitzer, you know, you start to get a feel for those things. And that's not really something you can do in the offseason. You got to do it when you're practicing. You see those in scrimmages and different things. But spring ball is one of them, and then August when we start practicing, it'll be the other one.
Coach Jonah Jackson, just curious how he's assimilated. He's got 2 years of experience at Rutgers.
Yeah.
Has he come in and put himself in position to be a starter for you guys?
Definitely to compete. Yeah, he's done a really good job with that. He's you know, learning the offense quickly. He's done a good job with Mick. Those guys are, you know, singing his praises. I think his body's in a good place. He's learning at a good pace. He's got experience. I think the guys up front like him. So it'll be fun to see him practice. You know, I haven't seen him other than, you know, the Rutgers film. I haven't seen him out in the field, so that'll be fun to see.
Ryan,